Right now, somewhere deep inside your own body, a hidden system is quietly deciding how fast you age. Most people alive today never trigger this system correctly, and they have no idea it even exists inside them. Scientists actually won a Nobel Prize for discovering this exact process, yet almost nobody outside a lab truly understands it. It is not a supplement you buy, not a trend you follow, not another diet fad to scroll past. It is a built-in cleaning system that quietly dismantles damaged cells long before they can turn into real disease. The real question is not whether this system works, because honestly, the science on that has already been settled. The real question is what happens inside your body when you activate it deliberately, every single day, for 30 days. This process has a name, autophagy, and it literally means self-eating, translated straight from ancient Greek roots. That sounds genuinely terrifying at first, almost like your own body is somehow attacking itself for no reason at all. But it is actually the complete opposite of destruction, because autophagy protects you by removing what already quietly hurts you. It specifically targets damaged proteins, broken mitochondria, and cellular debris that slowly build up inside your body over years. Think of it as an internal recycling plant that finally gets permission to run once you stop constantly feeding it. When nutrients drop and insulin levels fall, your individual cells receive a very specific biological signal telling them to shift. That signal tells your cells to stop growing right now and instead start cleaning house immediately and remarkably efficiently. Fasting is what triggers this switch most reliably, but so does endurance exercise, caloric restriction, and a few natural compounds. Researchers have been documenting this exact mechanism for decades now, and the evidence keeps growing noticeably stronger with every passing year. Understanding how to flip this specific switch changes the entire way you think about hunger, permanently and completely from now on. Here is something most people never actually tell you. The effects are not identical from one single day to the next. Week 1 feels almost nothing like week 3, and week 3 feels genuinely nothing like day 30 eventually feels. Your body adapts in distinct layers, responding differently depending on exactly how long you manage to sustain the practice. That is precisely why 30 days is the specific number scientists keep coming back to, again and again, repeatedly. In the very first few days, your cells begin clearing away short-lived damaged proteins almost immediately after fasting officially starts. Studies conducted on animals show that even 24 hours without food dramatically increases key autophagy markers inside living tissue. Human research focused on prolonged fasting protocols found genuinely measurable changes in cellular regeneration after only a handful of days. By the end of week 2, something significantly bigger begins happening deep inside your mitochondria themselves, almost without you noticing. A specific process called mitophagy starts selectively removing the exact mitochondria that no longer function properly inside your cells. This matters enormously, mostly because damaged mitochondria are directly linked to metabolic disease and noticeably accelerated biological aging over time. Regular activation of these particular pathways has repeatedly been shown to improve metabolic flexibility while lowering harmful inflammation markers significantly. By day 30, assuming you manage to stay consistent, the cumulative effect on your cells is genuinely far from small. You are about to fully understand exactly what that means before we even finish walking all the way through this together. People usually connect their diet only to cholesterol or blood sugar, rarely to something as biologically specific as autophagy itself.
Very few people realize that everyday eating patterns are directly tied to Parkinson's, type 2 diabetes, and even certain aggressive cancers. This particular connection is absolutely not speculation anymore. It is published, peer-reviewed, and steadily expanding with every passing year. Take type 2 diabetes as one clear example, where damaged insulin-producing cells slowly accumulate inside the pancreas over many years. Research consistently shows that impaired autophagy inside these specific cells directly causes their eventual dysfunction and ultimately their premature death. When autophagy is working properly, those damaged cells get quietly recycled long before they ever cause any real problems for you. When autophagy fails instead, damaged cells simply pile up. Insulin production suffers, and blood sugar regulation slowly starts to collapse. Cancer is considerably more complicated, mostly because autophagy plays completely different roles depending entirely on the specific stage of disease. In healthy, functioning cells, autophagy acts as a genuine tumor suppressor, clearing dangerous damage before it ever turns fully malignant. Mice, bred with reduced autophagy protein levels, developed tumors at significantly higher rates than genetically normal, unmodified control mice did. A body where autophagy runs consistently and reliably has far better cellular surveillance against the exact damage that precedes real disease. Your brain burns an enormous amount of energy constantly, and that alone makes it especially vulnerable to damaged protein buildup. Alzheimer's disease is literally defined by exactly the kind of misfolded protein clumps that autophagy exists specifically to clear away. This particular link between autophagy failure and brain decline is currently one of the most active research areas in neuroscience today. Researchers studying actual Alzheimer's patients found undigested cellular material steadily accumulating inside neurons years before any symptoms ever finally appeared. That means the body's cleaning system quietly breaks down long before the disease itself ever becomes visible to anyone watching. This naturally raises an uncomfortable question. Could consistently activating autophagy actually delay or soften neurodegenerative disease later on in life? Early evidence, while admittedly not fully conclusive in humans just yet, strongly points in a genuinely hopeful and encouraging direction. Beyond simply preventing disease, autophagy also connects directly to memory formation and cognitive performance in otherwise perfectly healthy individuals too. One particular study found that enhancing autophagy in older, aging mice actually restored their ability to form entirely new memories. Their brains showed noticeably stronger synaptic connections afterward, and their performance on standardized memory tasks improved significantly compared to before. You, of course, are not a mouse, and translating animal data directly to humans always requires a genuine amount of scientific caution. Still, the underlying biological mechanism makes real sense, and researchers are actively testing this exact theory in human cognitive studies now. There is honestly a lot of confusing noise online about what actually triggers autophagy properly inside a real human body. Some people claim one single cup of black coffee does it. Others insist you genuinely need 72 full hours of fasting. The actual truth sits somewhere comfortably in between, depending heavily on your metabolism, the specific pathway, and your overall consistency. Intermittent fasting, especially eating only within an 8-hour window and fasting for the remaining 16, is the most extensively studied method. A 12-week clinical study found genuinely measurable improvements in autophagy markers, blood pressure, and insulin resistance, all occurring simultaneously together.
You honestly do not need extreme, punishing fasting windows to start seeing real, measurable results happening inside your own body. Consistency matters far more than shared duration ever does, especially during the earlier, more difficult stages of building this new habit. What happens when you repeat this exact pattern for 30 entire consecutive days genuinely surprises almost everyone who actually tries it. Exercise is the other major lever here, and it is constantly, almost criminally underestimated in these particular online conversations. Endurance exercise, things like running, cycling, and swimming, activates the exact same biological pathways that fasting does inside living cells. One landmark study found that exercise-induced autophagy in muscle tissue directly regulates glucose control throughout the entire human body afterward. Resistance training contributes meaningfully too, though it technically works through slightly different biological pathways compared to steady cardio exercise. Combining a consistent fasting window with regular exercise creates a genuinely compounding effect that neither strategy achieves entirely on its own. Sustained together across 30 full days, that specific combination becomes genuinely fascinating from a purely biological standpoint worth examining closely. There's a specific concept in biology called proteotoxic stress, meaning damage caused by misfolded proteins slowly piling up inside cells. Over time, this accumulated cellular garbage interferes with normal function and creates genuinely fertile ground for serious disease to develop. Autophagy is quite literally the only known mechanism your body naturally possesses to systematically remove this dangerous cellular buildup entirely. One leading researcher has spent literal decades studying a very specific pathway called chaperone-mediated autophagy that steadily declines with age. Her extensive research shows that as you get noticeably older, this internal cleaning system becomes progressively less efficient at its job. The exact proteins that should normally be degraded start accumulating instead, faster than your aging body can manage to clear them. In genuinely simple terms, the older you get, the more you desperately need autophagy, and the worse your body gets at it. That growing imbalance is honestly a huge part of why aging itself seems to noticeably accelerate as the decades quietly pass. Triggering autophagy consistently forces this vital cleaning mechanism to stay active, even as advancing age keeps trying to shut it down. One study found that regular intermittent fasting practiced in middle-aged people measurably reduced a specific protein that signals impaired autophagy function. Less of that particular protein circulating means the entire system is genuinely working exactly the way it was designed to. A system that keeps working properly day after day is a body that keeps functioning at a noticeably higher overall level. Here is exactly where most people following fasting protocols quietly sabotage their own results without even fully realizing they are doing it. They skip breakfast diligently, drink plenty of water, exercise early in the morning, and genuinely do almost everything else right consistently. Then, they quietly add something small they mistakenly assume is completely harmless somewhere inside their otherwise disciplined fasting window routine. A small splash of cream, a casual handful of almonds, a tiny 10-calorie protein shake, and autophagy simply, instantly stops working. Not slows down gradually, stops completely and immediately because of a specific pathway called mTOR that competes directly against autophagy itself. When mTOR gets activated inside your cells, autophagy shuts off almost instantly, and mTOR responds to remarkably small amounts of certain inputs. Amino acids and sharply insulin-spiking carbohydrates are the two single biggest triggers that researchers have consistently identified so far in studies. Even genuinely low concentrations of certain amino acids commonly found in dairy products are enough to fully activate mTOR signaling. That essentially means anything containing real protein content during your fasting window will likely end the entire process almost instantly. So what actually does not break your fast? Plain water, black coffee, and plain tea all appear to remain genuinely safe. Some emerging research even suggests that coffee's natural polyphenols may weakly enhance autophagy through a completely different cellular activation pathway. Caffeine itself has actually shown clear autophagy-inducing properties in certain specific cell types under carefully controlled laboratory testing conditions. But the margin for genuine error still stays quite small, and less is truly more during your entire daily fasting window. If you genuinely commit to 30 full days of daily autophagy activation, getting this one small detail right changes absolutely everything. Every single powerful biological mechanism has a specific context where it helps and another context where it can genuinely cause harm. Autophagy is honestly no exception here, and the research strongly supporting its benefits is real, but definitely not entirely unconditional or unlimited. Chronic, overly aggressive activation without proper nutritional support quietly creates problems that the online fasting community rarely, if ever, discusses openly. The single most well-documented concern is muscle protein degradation, especially when fasting runs far too long without adequate protein intake. Short-term autophagy induction is genuinely protective, but chronic caloric restriction without proper protein cycling can measurably accelerate age-related muscle loss over time. This matters especially for anyone over 40, where actively preserving muscle mass becomes increasingly critical for long-term metabolic health and longevity. Triggering autophagy every single day absolutely does not mean starving yourself completely every single day without any real exception whatsoever. The eating window genuinely matters just as much as the fasting window does when you are building this sustainable daily practice. There is also a genuinely important warning here for people currently managing specific, pre-existing medical conditions before starting any protocol like this. People living with type 1 diabetes, a history of eating disorders, or those who are pregnant should avoid aggressive fasting without direct supervision. Most existing autophagy research happens inside tightly controlled settings with healthy subjects, so extrapolating those results elsewhere genuinely requires real caution. The actual goal here is using this fascinating science intelligently, not turning an inherently beneficial mechanism into an unhealthy personal obsession. 30 days of smart, genuinely consistent activation looks completely different from 30 days spent chasing dangerous, unnecessary extremes and restriction. By the time you reach day 30 of consistent activation through fasting and exercise, something has genuinely shifted deep inside your body. These are no longer simply acute, temporary responses. They have quietly become full systemic adaptations occurring throughout your entire body now. Your mitochondria are running noticeably cleaner and considerably more efficiently than they were doing just a single month earlier, honestly. Your inflammatory baseline has meaningfully shifted, and your insulin sensitivity has measurably, provably improved compared to where it started this journey. These are genuinely not vague, unsupported claims. They are the direct, cumulative results of every single mechanism we just walked through together.
One clinical trial following a structured intermittent fasting protocol found significant reductions in visceral fat after just 4 consistent weeks. Participants also showed noticeably improved cardiometabolic markers alongside meaningfully lower levels of circulating inflammatory molecules present throughout their bloodstream afterward. Those specific markers genuinely do not shift overnight. They shift precisely because the cellular environment stayed consistently maintained for several full weeks. 30 days turns out to be genuinely enough time for that biological shift to become clearly measurable in real blood panels. Perhaps the single most underappreciated effect of all is what happens to your entire relationship with hunger itself over time. Research consistently shows that steady fasting gradually reprograms how your brain interprets hunger signals and carefully regulates key appetite hormones. People who genuinely maintain a fasting practice for 30 full days or more consistently report hunger becoming far more manageable overall. Energy levels stay noticeably more stable, and mental clarity sharpens considerably during the actual fasting windows themselves, almost every single time. That is honestly not raw willpower at work. That is your neurobiology genuinely adapting to a consistent, repeated daily biological stimulus. Once your brain fully adapts to this new rhythm, maintaining the practice stops feeling like discipline and starts feeling completely effortlessly normal. So how exactly do you build this into your everyday life without it slowly turning into a full obsession or extreme swing? The honest answer, based entirely on what current research actually supports, is genuinely simple and does not require anything radical whatsoever. A daily 16-hour fasting window, finishing dinner by 8 at night and not eating again until noon, is genuinely enough for most. This alone is enough to consistently activate autophagy in most healthy adults, according to multiple separate published clinical studies conducted recently. Pair that consistent eating window with roughly 3 to 4 sessions of moderate to vigorous exercise spread across every single week.
Prioritize genuine protein adequacy specifically during your eating window in order to properly protect your existing muscle mass over time. Do all of that together, and you now have a protocol that is genuinely both fully evidence-based and realistically sustainable long-term. No expensive supplements are required at this baseline level, no extreme restriction needed either, just genuine, repeated, daily consistency over time. The 30-day framing specifically matters because it takes roughly that long for these small adaptations to fully compound into something noticeable. The first week is mostly just adjustment, while the second week is your cellular machinery genuinely starting to properly catch up. By weeks 3 and 4, both your metabolic and neurological adaptations genuinely start stabilizing into an entirely new, healthier baseline state. That is precisely when people report the clearest cognitive function, the most stable energy levels, and the most visible physical changes. This is genuinely not some passing detox trend or wellness fad. This is simply applied cell biology working exactly as intended. And the real difference between people who genuinely benefit from this and people who never do almost always comes down to consistency. Because once you truly understand what is actually happening deep inside your own cells, fasting stops being only about losing weight. It becomes about something far bigger than that, giving your own body genuine permission to finally clean, repair, and completely heal itself.